Hey, y'all, welcome to the Why Podcast, where why is always the question. And today we are diving into a topic that doesn't nearly get enough attention, and that's ageism. So for today's why ageism isn't a problem or disease that needs to be fixed, let's dive right in. So I got really interested in this particular topic after watching a movie starring Demi Moore titled The Substance. And it irritated me because there was so much emphasis in the underlying message of the movie focused on ageism. I mean, the movie itself is about how a woman that has been on television for over 20 or 30 years in the fitness industry was still beautiful, still in great shape. How, because she was considered old, she was no longer of value. And I was like, man, looking at that for myself, I was like, now I'm 41. There was a time when I would lie about my age. And let me tell you, I was still in my 20s when I did it. It was like when I'm 25, I'm like, oh, I'm 21. Still 21. Like, it's funny when we're younger, right? When we lie about our age, when we want to be older. So like when I was like 14, I'm like, oh no, I'm 15. I would go like a year or two higher. I'm 15, I'm 16. And then as soon as I hit 18, or 21, I wanted to stay 21. So I would say things like, oh no, when I got older, I'm 21. Here I am 22. I'm 21. And here I am 27. I'm 21. And though for myself, that because I don't age, I age like pretty much, I notice I age like every 10 years. I can see the differences like every 10 years when I look through photos where I was like, oh, it's a little different, But then also I'm a mother of 10 children. So my body has changed many times. I mean, my skin, the elasticity, everything has changed. But I've always been young and vibrant. And I attribute that to my mother because as an older woman, she's always been really just with the times, ready to go. And not as though she was trying to fit in. She was always very mature and held herself in great regard. But because she didn't allow herself to get old up here, to age up here. She was always wise. However, she didn't say, oh, my leg hurts because I'm, 50. It was never that. But there are some people that do that. So when I was watching that movie, it intrigued me. It intrigued me. And I can say, honestly, when I actually started embracing my age was after, I'm trying to think if it was after my nephew was murdered or after I lost my son. I think it was a combination of both. After my nephew was murdered, I was looking at things a little differently because my nephew was like a son to me. And a few years later, when my son passed away, it really put the nail in the coffin for me. Reason being is my nephew would never be past the age of 19, and my son would never be past the age of 1 month. Why am I lying about an age that I already was and not embracing the age that I am? This is a question that I asked myself. So when I'm out in the world and people don't know, what is 40 supposed to look like? Am I supposed to be old and decrepit looking? And even if somebody is old and decrepit looking or whatever the case may be, why is that such a problem? It's not a disease, that needs to be fixed, hence the title. And, when I'm out and people, they're like, oh, they thought that maybe I was in my late 20s or early 30s because I'm so vibrant. And I'm like, no, I'm 41. Or 40, whatever the case may be, at the time. And people are like, what? What am I supposed to look like? Am I not supposed to be able to hit cartwheels and flips and jump off the monkey bars with my children and chase them around the park and roller skate around the park and ride my bike and do all of the things? it just really got me going into wanting to talk about this topic, and I have some points here that I really want to go into, because too often ageism is treated like a disease. It's something that we are programmed to fear, avoid, or even cure, when in reality, it's really just another part of life. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I told my children, I said, listen, I'm 80 years old. A sister gonna get smashed. Right? I got wrinkles. A sister gonna be like, let me pull that back a little bit, because I'm loving me some neither one of us. Gladys Knight, she look good. I said, girl, you in your 80s. And she got a little facelift. There's nothing wrong with that, to each his own. However, I noticed there are children younger, like in their 20s, getting facelifts. What? In their 30s, in their 40s. You're young. You still have your elasticity. You still have everything there. Why? And I know I attribute it to ageism. The discrimination. This is a discrimination that people don't talk about. We often talk about sexism and racism, but we do not talk about ageism much. Though it's put in our face as a pill to swallow, to accept, which is fine to accept, or to not accept. Anti-wrinkle cream, anti-aging medications, and then these things are killing us faster. It's giving us skin cancers. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I am not willing to sacrifice my life for some skin cream going to give me cancer. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And I would be remiss to say, because even though I just mentioned I would get a facelift, I do think in my mind, like, girl, at that age, do you think you'll be healthy enough? Or, and I say healthy because I know I'll be healthy. I keep myself together. Would it cause health problems? Like, I think about this. This is a real question. Like, would this cause health problems if I got me a facelift for 80? What would that do? Would that cause, I don't know. These are the things, the ignorance of things that we don't know, which is why it's important to research, whatever, right? However, coming back to that movie I watched with the substance, I was like, dang, she was still young, vibrant. She was still with it. And she fell for the I'm too old. And it didn't make it any better that the men in her company made her feel as though she was washed up and old, and then it wasn't young and vibrant. And I'm like, man, this is something that is one of the last socially acceptable prejudices. It is. There's an article with that same title, Ageism is one of the last socially acceptable prejudices, from the American Psychological Association. It explores how ageism is ingrained in our culture, especially Western culture, but I think even around the entire world. It's not embraced as openly as some cultures may embrace it, maybe in India or maybe in China. But when I even look to those countries, they're getting facelifts and snatch as well, right? And anti-wrinkle creams as well. So its impact on older adults and the efforts psychologists are making to change the perceptions is overlooked, because for others is not of a major importance. Like, okay, like you get to a certain age, it's just like you're old, and that's what it is. And I remember even when I was younger, because I always wanted to be a singer, right? And I'm laughing now because I'm like, dang, I cannot believe my mindset. I was singing and I was in choirs, and I wanted to make it or get a record deal by the time I was 18. Because in my mind, and I don't even know where this programming came from. I know it came from me seeing so many different artists be successful at the age of 15 or 14 or even 16. And so I'm like, if I am past 18 trying to be a singer, I'm too old. I'm too old. And I remember like really pushing, and I'm like, I need to do this before. And I remember somebody was like, but that's not, oh, you're still young. But the programming was so ingrained in my mind. And it wasn't until, I was 20 years old, and I love reading documentaries, or I love watching documentaries and reading biographies and autobiographies. And I was reading an interview with Jill Scott. And she had just blew up, around this time. And I remember her saying She was 27 when she had finally gotten her record deal. And I was like, 27? And I was like, man, she was old. This is 19-year-old, 20-year-old me thinking like, she was 27? And after she was old, I was like, she was older than 16. So I'm like, does that mean I have a chance? And it was like I put a little battery in my back, and I kept going. And did I have instances where I got close to my goals and whatnot? I did. But the voice of God wanted me to go down a different path, and I chose to follow that path, hence, and I'm here today. But nonetheless, I remember when I heard that, it sparked something in me to say, oh, I don't have to only be, this particular age. And as I'm older and wiser, I'm like, do they want younger kids because they're easier to take advantage of? That's what I'm thinking now. Not to go off on this whole tangent. Another article, though, that was written is How America's Ageism Hurts, Shortens Lives of the Elderly. And this piece examines the hidden stereotypes of aging and their insidious effects on the health and longevity of older Americans. So what this pretty much means, that when you're inundated with information about you being too old, a lot of people believe that, and they start aging faster. They feel like they have one foot in the ground. And I can say, I would never forget this. I was at the time 24, 25. I was living in this community in Georgia. And the community was primarily or at least the area of the community, because there were townhouses, but the area I lived in, the whole entire townhouse structure, were more so around elderly women, which I didn't mind. I love elderly women and their wisdom. I look for that, honestly. And when I say elderly, I mean they were all like in their 80s. And next door to me, there was this woman, and she was only in her 50s. She was literally the same age as my mother. Mind you, my mom is... This is my mother. She's gone. My mom is on the road team. My mom is doing, she jumps rope, she lifts weights. And people are like, what? She's doing that at that age? And I'm like, that's normal, because that's how I was raised. So this woman, she's the same as my mother. She was acting like the 80-year-olds, walking, and I remember her saying, I'm so old. My time is coming to an end, and I'm not going to be here. I'm like, and I remember asking her, I was like, why are you talking like that? I said, you're only like 52. She said, oh, that's old, honey. I said, no, that's not. That's young. And she's like, what do you know, youngster? Again, that's a reverse ageism. It's like, I don't know anything because I'm younger, right? And I was like, my mother's your age. And I was like, my mother goes to the gym. She's lifting weights. My mom is on the road team. My mom is on the swim team. 52 to me is like, yes, life just began. That's how I saw it. So I'm like, and you're in here where like life is ending. And that was so weird to me. But I noticed, because of the information that they put out to a lot of Americans, especially in the media, it makes them believe that, and they start aging faster. Psychology is something else. I'm like, Like, I embrace my age. And any age that any of you are out there, embrace it. If you're 20, enjoy 20. Don't think, I gotta be 18. No, enjoy 20, because at some time we all get older and we all have to live and we all have to die. That's just the reality of things. That's the truth. That's factual, right? Another article that was covered was Ageism Against Older People, Research Roundup and Explainer. Yes. My brother-in-law, he had been working in the tech industry for years. I mean, top of his class, top of his field. And I remember when his company moved to another location in America, he didn't want to move there. And so he needed to find a new job. Mind you, he was with that particular job for over 35 years. And because of his age, it took him 2 years to find another position, which is insane. Because someone with his expertise and knowledge and wisdom and background should have been able to find another job like that. Boom, bow. In tech, especially. But because of his age, they were discriminating against him. So he needed to take the years off of how long he was at a particular, he was at one company for 35 years. He took the length of the time off. That is crazy. When he eventually got his position, they appreciated him. They understood that they had gold. So I'm just like, that's crazy to me. And then here I am, 41. I'm always starting over, honey. Because why not? I have a young, vibrant spirit, and I always will. I think you grow old. You allow yourself to grow old in here. It's fine to grow wiser, but don't let yourself grow old and then it affects your body or the physiology of yourself, your body, to where now you're growing old and now you're walking with a hunch, or I can only wear these types of clothes because I'm this age. Stop playing with me. We're not even going to do that. And then you have workplace discrimination. So you have people, many adults that face bias when applying for jobs, like I just mentioned, promotions also, what I just mentioned with my brother-in-law, or learning new skills despite their experience and knowledge. Like, how? How do we just say, no? What is that movie I just watched? Old Dads. Old Dads. Insert clip, okay? I was tripped out, like, why they were saying some of the things, and it was just based on age. And they continue with the propaganda in the media to make it's scaring the younger generation because they're making them feel like getting old is a disease, is a problem. No, it's not. Oh my gosh, it can be so much more, life can be so much more wonderful and graceful if we embrace our age. So the media representation in the advertising industries, and let's not even get on, we already know we're dealing with ageism, but for women, we're dealing with a combination of ageism and sexism. It's like, if you're old, you get put out the pasture. But if you're a man and you're older, ooh, look at Pops over there with the gray hair, with the gray beard. Oh, but look at her over there. Nobody wants that. She's a cougar. What? It's like all of these different like titles that are placed, on women especially, because for women, ageism and sexism goes hand in hand. It just does. It just does. Ageism is a huge thing, but then for women, ageism and sexism is like all rolled in one. It's crazy to me. And then let's not even go into the healthcare bias, to where it's like you don't want to give serious treatment to others that are, to our older generation for their serious illnesses. There's no concern because, they're going to pass anyway at some point. And they're old enough. Who are you to tell me I'm old enough? I would love if it be the Father's will. We all have our prayers or things that I would love to live as old as I possibly can. And I'm going to make sure I have a good time doing it if as much as I possibly can. I don't care if I'm sitting here talking to y'all. Hey, y'all, welcome to the Wild Podcast. At whatever age. I think that's so important. The next topic we have is the tech and digital divide. That there is, and I'm not going to act like I haven't had this assumption. I'm not, and I'm leaning into this, and I'm saying this because I caught myself thinking this the other day when I was on the airplane sitting next to an older gentleman and lady. Is that we have the assumption that the older generations can't adapt to new technology, and that this excludes them from digital resources and opportunities. And I don't even know. And I'm telling this story when I was on the plane a few days ago. An older gentleman. I don't even know how old this guy was. He had gray hair, so I'm just assumed he was probably in his 60s. I mean, he looked like he was probably in his 60s, and she did too. And she whipped out her iPad, and he whipped out his computer, and they're sitting there. And I remember I was looking at them, and I remember having a thought like, oh, that's so great for them to be able to actually adapt to technology at their age. What? And I was also thinking like, man, the differences that they had seen from their generation to now, I know it's like night and day. Mind you, I was watching a TV show that was like based in the 60s, so I was like, man, they were in the time when they were using typewriters. Because I remember when my mom had a typewriter in the 80s before we got our first Macintosh, and I was like, man. And I don't know why I'm sitting there like silently kind of, I don't want to say judging, but having this conversation in my mind about their age and as it relates to technology. But I believe a lot of us possibly do that because of the propaganda that the media puts out that people who are old, they can't adapt to technology. There are some people, that I know that are still young, 40s, 50s, and no, they too have not adapted to technology. Even some that are in their 20s and 30s. They're just not completely apt to the use of technology. And that's fine. It doesn't necessarily have to be an age thing. It's just a preference thing, right? So I watched this really, 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 really great TEDx by Ashton Applewhite called The Ugly Truth About Ageism. And she named some great points, which is the reason why I even named this topic why ageism isn't a problem or a disease that needs to be fixed, because she went over points of fact of how we are trained up from children to be afraid of getting older, to feel as though it is a disease. And I'm just here to say, and I try to tell a lot of younger, I don't want to say children, but a lot of other young adults to embrace your age. It gets better. And I've always heard that when I was younger, it gets better. It does. It gets better because you get wiser and you get more accepting of yourself. Ashton Appleton also wrote an amazing book, which I am covering on the next segment of the Reading Corner. You can find this book in bookstores, or you can download it on Audible today. This book, This Chair Rocks, A Manifesto Against Ageism by Ashton Applewhite, who I also played the clip on her TEDx. It is a thought-provoking book that challenges societal norms around aging and offers insights on how to dismantle ageist beliefs. It's a great listen to. It's a great read. If you are finding yourself in the space of, I'm getting older, and what does that look like and what does that feel like? It feels accepting that it's okay to do so. For me, it shouldn't take the loss of someone, but when you do lose someone or some people or those that are close to you, you embrace your age more because you realize, gosh, they'll never see this age. My sister will always be 38. My late husband will always be 37. My nephew will always be 19, and my son will always be 1 month. It's just what it is. I was more accepting of my grandmother who passed away at 83 because she had 83 years. Would I have longed for more time with her? Of course. But I had a wonderful conversation with her before she passed, and she was accepting of what her end was going to be. We have to enjoy our age at every step of life and embrace it. So that is what I'm covering on the Reading Corner for my book. You can download this book on Audible. You can use my link below. I am not sponsored by Audible, but I do have an affiliate link where you can go ahead and sign up, subscribe, get your credits, pay monthly, and get as many books as you possibly can. Y'all don't even want to see my library. My library trumps my in-house library because it's digital. I can press play and I can listen to it at any time. All right, now back to the show. So in discussing what Ashton Applewhite said in her TEDx, I can agree that we've come to a point just within our lives that we've become accepting of what we've been programmed to think about ageism. And when I say accepting, we've accepted that we think it's a problem. And some people have accepted it without giving permission to the thought. It's just been, I'm getting old or getting old. Like it's a disease. Like it's disgusting. And I thought like that at one point too, But I'm here to say, the next time you look at someone of an older stature, don't assume that they're senile or losing their mind, or that they're weak and frail and just need your help, or that they just can't adapt to technology because it's so new and they're so old, or whatever the case may be, whatever what the media put out there, wipe it from your mind. Wipe it and start with a clean slate of really understanding that we all get old someday. Embrace who you are today. Embrace what your age is in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s. I'm not yet in my 50s, but I've embraced fully who I am without any care for judgment. I don't care. I don't. And I know it comes from, life will age you mentally. Life will mature you mentally to where you will look at things differently and you will appreciate life a lot more. So I'm going to thank y'all for joining me with another successful podcast of why ageism isn't a problem or a disease that needs to be fixed. If today's conversation made you feel or think differently, I'd love to hear your thoughts. So drop a comment down below, share this with a friend, and keep the discussion going. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. And as always, I'm going to leave y'all with this. Question everything, because why is always the question. And I'm out. Peace.